Query and Company.
I'm going to be keeping you company for the next few hours.
You are not going to believe the company.
This company.
You're going to bankrupt your mama's company?
At least I have the radio to keep me company.
On 93.5 and 107.5, The Fan.
Good evening and welcome to a night of playoff basketball with the Indiana Pacers. Tonight, the NBA Finals continue as the Pacers take on the Oklahoma City Thunder at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. Halliburton attacks, kicking to Neesmith. Open man in the corner. Nembhard bounces once and hits another three. Pass stolen by McConnell. McConnell to the top. Toppin lets it fly and delivers a three.
What hands by McConnell there.
Three ball long. Rebound floats out to the foul line. Hartenstein grabbed it, lost it. Picked up by Joe and now stolen by Halliburton. Pacers have the ball. They've got numbers. Open man, far corner, and that's a Neesmith three. Jalen Williams has his pass deflected. Halliburton steals it into the open floor. He got it to Siakam, who threw down the right-hand tomahawk. It's a 20-point lead.
Put him in the basket, Pascal Siakam.
Down to 8 seconds to play. McConnell on the drive in the lane. Open man, and Toppin missed the three. Rebound punched outside. Shepard fires from the top.
Good.
He hit it, and that's going to count. He hit a three as time expired. The lead is 30. Final score, the Indiana Pacers 108, the Oklahoma City Thunder 91.
The best two words in sports, Game 7.
One game. This is what it's all about. This is what you dream about growing up, this kind of opportunity.
There's nothing like a Game 7. There's nothing like a Game 7 in the NBA Finals. Dreamed of being in this situation my whole life, so to be here is really exciting. What's happened in the past doesn't matter. What happened today doesn't matter. It's all about one game. Yes.
So as Prince once said, 07, and now we watch them fall, and we hope that we watch fall will be the Oklahoma City Thunder. An electric night last night at Gainbridge Fieldhouse, a euphoric evening. As Indiana, you heard the call there from Mark Boyle, and then you heard Bill Russell saying it all comes down to a seventh game. Tyrese Halliburton, Rick Carlisle. This is it. One game. One. For an NBA title. And yes, it has been a roller coaster ride of emotions. Yes, it has been at times euphoric. Yes, it has been at times disheartening. We didn't know the status of Tyrese Halliburton. We didn't know how good Shai Gilgeous-Alexander or Jalen Williams could or could not be. We did not know that Obi Toppin was going to be the one that throws his hat in the ring as a potential MVP discussion if the Pacers are to win the NBA title. What we know is this. What we know is in the last 20 years, there have been three teams that have been down 3-2 that have won a Game 6 at home and then packed up their bags to go on the road for a Game 7. And all three of those became NBA champions. What we know is that there was admittedly, and I will be the first to say it, here's what happened last night. Yesterday was interesting because it was different than last Wednesday. It was different than last Monday. Those games when you were going in, Wednesday and Friday. Those games when you were going in for a Pacers home finals playoff game, particularly in Wednesday in game number 3. The weather was perfect. Tens of thousands were downtown, viewing parties. It was a civic celebration. And then Friday was this rise, this euphoric, oh my goodness, it's right there at our fingertips. And that last 4 minutes happened. And then you had to sit through the weekend. And then you had to watch Monday night. And it felt like yesterday was just this process. Almost like processional. I guess we'll go down, and gosh, I certainly hope Oklahoma City doesn't win on our home floor, and how are we going to handle that? And I think there was a nervous energy amongst nearly everyone. And I felt it. I was disappointed by it. It almost was like when you have Christmas and you open the gifts and everybody's there at Christmas Day and you're so excited about Christmas. And then there's another side of the family that's like, oh, by the way, we get together on the 27th and that's when we do the in-law side. And it's kind of fun, but you're like, yeah, but I kind of feel like we've already gone through like the big shebang. And I think there were people that felt that way about Game 6. This is cool, but now they're down 3-2 and Oklahoma City might win it all. And I felt like 3 and 4 was our big shebang, and we let it go with Game 4. And last night, as that game got going, and as soon as the ball was tipped, and as soon as the crowd started cheering, and as soon as you panned to the audience, and you saw Steven Jackson was there, and you saw Lance Stevenson was there, and you saw Mark Jackson and Austin Crocher and Rick Smits and former trainer David Craig and Billy Keller and Sam Perkins. They're all there. And you start getting excited, and you're like, this does feel different. This is games 3 and 4 all over again. And, man, if they just would have held on in Game 4, then this would be for a title. But then you have to also temper yourselves and say, but then again, is Oklahoma City playing at a different level tonight if they're the ones down 3-2? So wouldas and couldas and shouldas, fine. We'll set that aside and we'll put it out the window. But then something happened last night that I noticed. I've been to and been fortunate enough, and I'm grateful that I've been to a ton of Pacer games over the last handful of years. And during those games, many a time, I don't know if they do it every game, but many times in the game, they run the final scene from Hoosiers where Norman Dale is getting his team. I don't think it's the final game, actually. It's before one of the playoff games. But when he's getting them clapping, all right, let's go. You know, I don't care what the scoreboard says. And the crowd starts cheering and everybody gets into it. And they did it last night. And as they did it last night, and I kid you not, what I'm about to tell you is 100% the truth and not revisionist history, not my own mind looking back on it in a weird way. I captured it because what I've tried to do for this entire series, what I've tried to do in talking about it with all of you folks that are kind enough to give me your ear each day for 3 hours, what I've tried to do is to let everybody know to live in the moment. Enjoy this. Soak it in, because we never know when we're going to see it again. And so in living in the moment, I noticed something in the moment last night. I hear the crowd starting to get amped up, and I looked up to look at the video board to watch the video of the Norman Dale scene, a scene that I've seen 1,200 times in my life. But as I looked up to look at the video board, my eye shot past the video board, and what I saw above it were the rafters. And what I saw in the rafters were the names of the men who have built this franchise. I saw Mel Daniels' name. I saw George McGinnis's name. I saw Mel Simon's name. I saw Roger Brown's name. I saw, yes, of course, Reggie Miller's name. I saw Jim Morris's name. And Len Dunn on the Fever side. But as I'm looking up there, it was Reggie Miller's banner that I noticed, because it took me to when I was a kid and when I was a young man, and I rooted so hard for Reggie Miller and those teams to win, and I wanted so badly. And the last fandom about me, the last enthusiasm, the last deep down inside of me, just like all of you, just like those of you right now listening to me in Southport, those of you listening to me right now in Westfield, those of you listening to me right now in Hawville, those of you listening to me right now in Pendleton, all of you know what I'm talking about. My fandom has grown and gone through adolescence and all of it. And the one thing that's never left me is my love for the Indiana Pacers and my passion and my desire to see them win a title. And the man that I thought for so many years was going to be the one that was going to get that done and gave every single ounce within him to get it done was Reggie Miller. And as I see the banner of Reggie Miller and I'm listening to Norman Dale, my eyes are spanning down now to watch the crowd and to see whether or not they're soaking in the moment. And at the bottom, as my eyes pan down, I see one person. stand up. I kid you not. One person stands up and starts doing the clap. And he's clapping harder and clapping faster, and then he's raising his arms, and he's suddenly now Norman Dale, and he's imploring the crowd, he's encouraging the crowd to feel and soak in the moment. And then it dawns on me that when he came here, and I wanted Steve Alford and not him, but when he came here and he first, on those really bad light bulb lights at Market Square Arena on the video board when he was a rookie and a second and third year player, when he'd hit a big basket, they would show a little thing that said Hollywood, and it would flash in lights because Reggie Miller was from L.A. He was really from Riverside, but we didn't know the difference. We're just flyover Indianapolis. But Reggie Miller helped put us on the map. And now all of a sudden, that guy that had been Hollywood, that guy was watching this Hollywood script unfold before our very eyes of this underdog Cinderella story. And when everybody else was sitting trying to grasp what was going on, it was Reggie Miller, who not as the TNT analyst, who not as the All-NBA performer, who not as the 8 points in 9 seconds, who not as the Spike Lee choke guy. It was Reggie Miller, a Pacer fan, wearing his Jalen Rose jersey, sitting next to his kid, the next generation of Pacer fan, who is dying with every play of that game. And Reggie Miller is standing up, and he's leading that crowd, and he's corralling everybody because Reggie Miller is aware of the moment. And he's aware that what he is seeing is right there, the confluence of a Hollywood script of a movie that took place 39 years ago that we still love and hold dear in this state. And he is actually watching it play itself out with this basketball team in 2025 that is 4 quarters, 1 game, 1 win away from bringing this town their first NBA title. And I love every damn thing about it. And I am so excited for Sunday night, and I want the Indiana Pacers to go to Oklahoma City and show that, yes, in fact, it is just them against the world. And I think they believe it. I think they have a camaraderie. Obi Toppin, after the game, said what a privilege it is to play with this team. It's a blessing, he said, a blessing to play with this team. Tyrese Halliburton said the past doesn't mean anything. It's about one game. It's about one game, and it's here. And last night was awesome. And yes, maybe Oklahoma City plays different if their back was against the wall, but it wasn't. They had a chance to win. The champagne was on ice, and the Pacers came in and said, we're taking complete and total control of this game. And from the beginning of that game to the end of that game, it was everything coming together. It was their camaraderie. It was their chemistry. It was their passion. It was their work ethic. It was their coaching. It was the crowd. It was Hollywood. It was Reggie Miller, and it was every single one of you, whether you were in that arena, whether you were at home watching on television, or whether you were listening on the radio. 1 game, 4 quarters, 1 win, and the Pacers are the 2025 NBA champions in what many would deem to be the most unlikely championship run in major professional American sports of the last half century, except those of us that live in Indianapolis, Indiana, because we've believed for quite some time because this group has made us believers. And I want to celebrate it today. Today's one of those days where we're going to celebrate it. We're going to talk about it. We're going to get fired up. We've got, obviously, time between now and Sunday. We don't have a show tomorrow. We don't have a show Sunday. Mark Montieth will join us in about 15 minutes to talk about the historical aspect. I want you folks to join us as well. It's your chance to celebrate. It's your chance to join in at 239-1070. Just to pop off and say how pumped you are. To say who it is that you want to see them win for. To say why this is, in fact, special, and to promise me that you're living in the moment and you're soaking it all in. Austin Crocher, who's been joining us throughout the playoffs, will be joining us at 1 o'clock today. Darnell Hillman, who has won a title after losing an opportunity to win a title and then having to come back and win it and close it out. Darnell Hillman going to join us today. Rick Smits, who last night was doing the T-shirt cannon and firing it into the crowd. Rick Smits going to join us, 1:45 today. Bob Netolicky, who was part of an NBA or an ABA title for the Pacers as well as Darnell Hillman. Bob Netolicky at about 2:10 today. And you folks as well, because I love everything about it. And the beauty of sports is that sports unifies the masses. And that unification of the masses, that bond, that solidarity starts now, and it starts with Greg, who joins us at 239-1070. Greg, you are on the air. What's going on? We're a win away.
Dude, I have been a Pacer fan my entire life, and me and my friends have been talking about how this team is just special. And back in the 90s, we were children, and memories when you were a children just kind of felt better. There was something, the world wasn't dragging you down. So how do you beat the Pacers, Reggie Pacers? But now this team is my favorite team, my friend's favorite team. They are just the definition of a team, and I cannot tell you how excited I am. So
Greg,
go Pacers.
I turned around. I appreciate it, Greg. There was a kid behind me in line yesterday getting hot dogs, about 10 years old. And I turned around to him and I said, you know what? This is going to make no sense to you now, but you may be my age before this happens again. So I want you, young man, to enjoy it. And if it doesn't happen this year, and it happens eventually, and you're my age when it does, I want you to think about that old man that said something to you in the hot dog line when you were 10. And he said, okay. He ain't going to remember it, but that's the point. It's generational stuff. Nick is up. What's up, Nick?
Oh man, that opening monologue just gave me goosebumps, man. I've been growing up on the Pacers. I was 7 years old when we went to that last finals, and that's some of my earliest memories. Growing up in Indiana, Reggie Miller is the reason that I fell in love with the beautiful game of basketball. And just working out in this city, something about this team is infectious to the city. You go around, it's just alive. I'm so excited, and I just can't speak highly enough to that opening monologue you gave to start the show. It made me want to call in because I really feel it that we're going to get it done Sunday night.
Nick, I'm all in, man. I appreciate it. And I'm telling you, I mean every word I said. There's just something special about it. There's something special for sure. Kat, up next. 239-1070. Hi, Kat.
Hey, what's up, boss? Hey, real quick, man. Why do we always talk about OKC being a dynasty and our name isn't never mentioned and we're right there with them? Come on, riddle me that.
It's because of the fact that they still have a lot of draft capital yet to spend, and they have the most valuable player in the league who is still young, and Jalen Williams, who is obviously very young, and Chet Holmgren, who's very young. That's why, because they have three core pieces at 26 or under, and they have a multitude of first-round picks. But absolutely understandable what you're saying. Why not Indiana, right, Kat? Stephen A. Smith said it. Stephen A. Smith said this team's not going away. If Indiana doesn't win this series, don't worry about it. This team is not going away because they've revolutionized the way that the game of basketball is being played right now. It's just that Oklahoma City is the one team that plays that same style. But I'm with you. I'm with you, Kat. I'm totally with you. Jake. Guy with the best name so far. Jake, what's up?
Jake, this is the first time calling in, and I got to say I was downtown for the whole thing, and I went to this game. And, I used to live in Wyoming for 6 years, and I have a twin brother. His name's Isaac, and me and him used to be dreaming of this moment, to be able to be downtown, to experience a finals game like this. And, man, it was a storybook. It was everything, literally everything. And to attribute what you were saying earlier about who to give credit or who to play this for, I fully believe that the spirit of Bobby Knight was downtown Indianapolis with us. It was amazing, just amazing.
Bobby Knight or Bobby Leonard? I
Both.
say it rhetorically.
Just say both. Let's just do both at this point.
That's fair. Now, I will say in the season on the brink, Bobby Knight had very terse things to say about the Pacers, but yes, I get it. And Slick Leonard for certain. Boom, baby, right? No question, Slick. And for Nancy Leonard, who was there last night as well. Cameron, you're up.
Hey, love that opening monologue about enjoying the moment, and that previous caller mentioning he was downtown for all this. I saw you up at Nippers and Carmel for Game 5, and I'm really debating whether I go to my hometown bar or hang out at Brothers downtown for Game 7.
Which one have you seen more victories in?
Oh, I have been at Nippers for every game of these playoffs.
There you go.
Same
There's your
seat,
answer.
same
There's your
shirt.
answer.
Yeah, okay. I got to roll
Steve
with
and
it.
Amy are great,
All right.
man. They're great people up there. And you know what? Cameron, here's the bottom line, and nothing against any of the other places you mentioned, but if that's your home bar, then the bottom line is you want to be around family. You want to be around family and friends when they win it, and if that's what your home bar is, then that's where it is. That's your answer. Robert. Robert, Matt, Johnny, and Chris, we're going to fly through you. Robert, what's up?
Hey, how's it going? Awesome game last night. Been fortunate to be able to go to a couple of them. The fans have been great. Last Wednesday, my son got to meet SGA's father. Got a picture of him. He was trying to stay on the down low, and SGA was like, "How did you know it was me?" He goes, "I seen you a picture with Big Papa." Well, last night we went to the a buddy of mine went to the game, and right before the end of the game, Big Papa came through. I got the same picture with Big Papa. It was just awesome. The experience was awesome. The crowd was awesome. Even the OKC fans, they're good fans. We haven't had no problems with them.
I will say they have been, the ones I've talked to have been very nice people for sure. There is a lot of looking in the mirror between those two franchises.
That's for sure. That's for sure. Well, we appreciate it, and let's go Pacers.
I appreciate it, Robert. Matt, you're up. What's up?
Hey, Jake. Admittedly, I am a casual NBA fan. I absolutely despise the product most of the time because it's just one-on-one. It's not the basketball you and I grew up on.
Have you not watched this team?
No. That's what I'm saying. I have been watching this team all year and most of last year because there is cutting, there is ball movement, there are picks. They do not play the style of ball that the NBA has become known for over the last 20 years, which has been my turnoff. That's why I don't watch the NBA. I do love this Pacers team. I love it for the city of Indianapolis. But yeah, this team in particular, and Oklahoma City, the way they typically play, other than the constant bodying with SGA, whatever. No, this team's enjoyable to play. It's like watching a college or a high school game in the state of Indiana.
I think the thing that's refreshing, Matt, is the fact that those two teams play that style, and they are the last two standing. And that's what I meant when I said I think that there's an element of this Pacers team being kind of a boulder in the stream to the NBA. The NBA should be doing backflips over this finals. Johnny's up. Johnny, you're on.
Jake, what's up, brother? I'm still dusting myself off after that first monologue, man. I ran through the brick wall this morning after hearing you. This city's lit. This town is lit. I'm telling you right now, nobody believes in us. Even Mike Breen after the game last night saying that this magic carpet ride is going to continue. This ain't no magic carpet ride. Everybody in this city knows damn well we are the team to beat, and we're going to prove it on Sunday. Let's go Pacers.
I love it, Johnny. Listen, if it's a magic carpet ride, I'm all for it, though. Whatever it is, whatever they're riding, I'm rolling with it. Larry, you're on.
Hey, man, what a great game last night, man. I was pumped, man. I had some doubts, whether Halliburton was going to play or not. I'm glad he did. It looked like it didn't bother him. It didn't look like he was, he was hitting shots and doing his thing, and hats off to McConnell. I had to get up at 4:30 this morning to go to work, and I don't think I went to bed till about 12:30.
I was going to say, man, 12:30. My God, you went to bed early. Larry, you were the first person in town in bed last night. You kidding me?
I know, right? And every time, brother, when they were hitting and they were knocking those threes and hitting those shots, man, I was clapping. Every time they hit, I was clapping. I was like, yeah, baby, this is the Pacers. This is what they're known for. And they just kicked butt, and it was awesome. So go Pacers. Let's kick their butts on Sunday.
I appreciate it, Larry. We got two Chris's left. Chris.
Hey,
what's
Jake,
up?
How's it going?
Good.
Hey, man, I'm following from down here in Nashville, Tennessee. I just want to thank you for all your interviews that bring me back to the 90s with all the players. I grew up in the 70s and 80s, riding the metro downtown, sitting by the brown curtain, and I just can't believe we're here. So
it's pretty
thanks
awesome, Chris. I appreciate it. And listen, it brings people together. That's the bottom line. It brings people together. And now there's still a lot of work to be done, though. There's a game between now and, of course, the championship itself. One game left, Game 7. But history favors the Pacers. One guy who's a historian about the Pacers, Mark Montieth, joins us other side. Phone calls throughout the course of the day as well. It is a Game 6 winning Friday here, Query & Company on the Fan. We thought that was going to be the case perhaps last night, but you can't look back on would-haves and could-haves because who knows how that game might have played out differently if that was the situation. Bottom line is they have now put themselves in position. And Mark Montieth joins now on the Rhinegeist Brewery guest line. Mark, I'll begin with this question. I've got to be in Road America for IndyCar on Sunday, but I'll be back in time for the start of the game. And just found out that now I don't have anybody to watch the game with, Mark. Can I come crash your house?
Sure. Yeah, come on over.
I don't know if I should be announcing this on the air or not, but Shannon just called me to ask my permission. She's on her way to Oklahoma City. And I'm like, you know what?
Oh. Hey, I'll text you the address and come on over.
I told her, I'm like, look, you got to go, right? You got to go. I totally understand it. I totally understand.
Absolutely.
Mark, it's easy to look at this and say that it's going to be this huge challenge for Indiana in terms of a Game 7 on the road. But you, Mark Montieth, markmontieth.com, of course, where people can read your work, including some of your historical archives of those prominent members of sports, including many former Pacers that you have done interviews with. Reality is, historically speaking, there is precedent that it's not altogether bad for Indiana, correct?
Not at all. I mean, this franchise, for whatever reason, has saved its best playoff moments for road games. They won all three of their ABA titles on the road. That was 1970, 72, and 73. And in two of those cases, being 1970 and 73, they could have won it at home. They had home games to win a championship out at the Coliseum, champagne on ice, all this anticipation for celebrating an ABA championship here in Indianapolis, and they couldn't get it done. There's a special kind of pressure on the home team in this kind of situation. Now, I did hear last night, and I think I remember this correctly, that in Game 7s in NBA history, the home team is like 15-4. So there's an obvious advantage there, and the Thunder were the better team during the regular season. Obviously, the odds are kind of stacked against the Pacers here, but just knowing this franchise's history should give people hope. And it's not just the ABA titles. Think of all the Reggie Miller moments in Madison Square Garden, the 25-point fourth quarter, the 8 points in 8.9 seconds, the three-pointer he hit to force an overtime in 98 there, in the big game he had in Game 6 in 2000 to send the Pacers to the finals. And he had big games in Philadelphia. I mean, we can go down the list and think of all the great Pacer playoff moments that have occurred on the road, and the list is much shorter in home games. I thought their closeout win over the Knicks was one of the bigger home court victories in franchise history. So there is a lot of precedent for this team doing big things on the road, and there will be a certain special kind of pressure on Oklahoma City on Sunday that they have not experienced before.
When you look, Mark Montieth, the guest here on the Rhinegeist Brewery guest line, in this Game 7, you've covered a lot of these games. You know a lot of these players. You've had, even conversations over lunches with players after the fact about moments where maybe there's more transparency. Do you think that players feel the nerves, the vibes, the pressure, the tension in a Game 7 that fans do?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think so. You have to. And this is an area where Slick Leonard was a great coach. He had a great record in Game 7s or closeout games. The thing he used to always say to the players was, hey, walk out there like you own the damn place. And, they had a certain arrogance about him that started with him, that walk out there like you own the damn place. And that would be good advice for the Pacers on Sunday. The crowd's going to be for OKC and, their favorite and everything, but walk out there like you own the damn place, like you're the best team. And that's much easier said than done. You got to carry yourself a certain way every day to have that feeling, but that's kind of the attitude they had. And they obviously carried through with that. But they, no doubt, felt a lot of pressure. But they apparently the home teams felt more pressure in those cases. Now, in 1970, the Pacers were just by far the better team against the LA Stars. But in 72 and 73, they were up against teams that were pretty much equal to them, particularly in 73, and still came through somehow.
Mark Montieth is our guest. Mark, your impressions of this particular installment of the Pacers, because To me last night, for example, there's always somebody different that you look at it and you go, it was that guy's game. I thought Toppin was sensational last night. I thought Andrew Nembhard really bounced back well last night. And Turner will not get a lot of praise because statistically he didn't jump out, but I thought defensively it might have been his best effort.
I agree. I thought his effort was really good. It was noticeable, the uptick in his effort at the start of that game, rebounding and defending. So that's really what they need from him more than anything. It would be nice if he could hit a couple three-pointers here and there. But if he's just playing as hard as he can possibly play around the basket, blocking shots, getting rebounds, changing shots, that kind of thing, he'll be doing his job. But, this team, it is a team. And, it's often been said, and I was listening to your earlier callers, and that's why you got to love it. 8 different guys averaging double figures, right? And, guys like Toppin and McConnell coming off the bench and making huge contributions. And that's their superpower, their depth and their balance. You don't know from one game to the next who's going to get 20 on you or 25. It could be Mathurin. It could be Toppin. You can almost count on McConnell to make a lot of contributions. So Larry Bird used to say that you just got to find 5 guys who are playing well. Doesn't have to be the starters. You need a couple guys off the bench. If you can get 5 guys playing well, you can win the game. And that's kind of what this team has done. They're getting a variety of guys playing well. You don't know from one game to the next, but that's going to make them hard to guard. I mean, you don't know who to focus on defensively because they've got a number of guys who can hurt you.
Mark, this is cart before the horse, okay? But we're there now. And it's one win, and we know that. It's the closest this franchise has been to an NBA title. Now, I think you and I are going to disagree on this because I think we had one discussion about it, if I'm not mistaken, okay? But hypothetically speaking, and I want to be very clear here. I'm not trying to, there's a lot of basketball still to be played, but they are one win away. If they did have a summertime, most kids I think are out of school, sunny day, pretty, green leaves on the trees, blue sky, parade through Indianapolis of a ticker tape parade to celebrate the first NBA championship in the history of the Indiana Pacers. How many people are there?
Yeah, you kind of educated me on this, Jake, when we talked about it, because I'm not good at estimating crowd sizes when it's a huge number of people, particularly outdoors. And I was thinking, 10, 20,000, something like that. And I know your number is much bigger, and you're probably right. I'm trying to think, they had parades for the teams that won it in the ABA. I think at least one of those coincided with the 500 parade, but they had big turnouts, but I don't recall ever hearing an estimate of the crowd. So I would defer to you on that. I think you're a better estimate of that. Because, I hadn't thought about that. And like I say, I'm not real good at estimating the crowd sizes. So I know your number is much bigger than mine would be.
Okay. I'm looking at it right now. The Kansas City Royals, probably a fair, the Royals are probably, that's a fair market size, right? Kansas City to Indianapolis.
Yeah.
Says when the Kansas City Royals won the World Series, it is believed that for certain there were 400,000 people on the ground with another 80,000 people watching from buildings along the route. And while it was initially reported as close to 800,000, it is believed the number was closer to right at 500,000 people. I think that's pretty fair. I actually do. I actually do think that.
Yeah, no, you could be right. And Indianapolis is kind of made for this kind of thing with the circle. There's kind of a gathering spot. It gets to be dangerous having that many people concentrated in a
most places
area.
Like Kansas City has the plaza, Chicago has Grant Park. Like most cities have a huge open space area where you can put that stage and then have everybody collect there, and that's ultimately where the parade ends. And I would imagine that would be the American Legion Mall, between the library and the War Memorial. But you'd have to go all the way down Penn, around Gamebridge. You'd probably incorporate the circle, although you got to get rid of all the guys that are trying to, both guys that have been working on the stairs for 9 years. And then, so I don't know. But again, maybe if we talk too much into it, we're starting to jinx it, Mark. So we'll just say, let's get through one game first, and then whatever the hell the number is, we'll be there. You and I will both be there, and I'll crash your house at about 9:30 on Sunday.
All right, sounds good to me.
Should I take that personally that Shannon decided she'd rather be in Oklahoma City than watching with me?
Yes.
I don't think so. I think this is an exception to the rule. You know her history with the franchise and how many years she has been going to games. So this is one you cannot pass up if you have an opportunity to go.
I did not hesitate for a split second. She said, "You're going to hate me, but I just got a phone call, and I said, you have to go. You have to go."
Yeah, absolutely.
There's no
Jake,
question
let me
about it.
say one thing here. The one thing that I recall from the ABA championships, and it still applies today, and it still kind of amazes me to this day to see how a sports team's success can get people so excited. And it's a good thing. People get so excited, and I'm sure you, as well as me, are hearing from people you didn't even think were basketball fans, and they're excited about it. And it really does kind of unify a city. It might be only for a week or so, but it really does have a unifying aspect to it. And I really thought the ABA Pacers improved race relations in the city. The late 60s, early 70s were kind of a tense time for race relationships, and those games were the one place in the city everybody would go. Income, race didn't matter. Everybody was going to the games and excited about it. And the way those players conducted themselves and interacted with the public, I really felt like those teams had an impact on race relations in the city and the state, and we're in a lot of ways beyond that now. But this team certainly has excited the city and has had kind of a unifying aspect to it. And so that's one of the great things that sports can do.
Nothing unifies the masses like sports, Mark. I have said it a million times. Always a pleasure, and I probably am not. I'll let you watch the game without the interruption of me crashing your party on Sunday, Mark. But certainly look forward to talking to you about it after the fact. And
all right.
And if you know me, that means I'll probably call you at 2 a.m.
That's fine. I'll be up. And if your TV isn't working for some reason, let me know.
I appreciate it. Appreciate it, Mark.
Okay, thanks, Jay.
The Pride of Pike. That is Mark Montieth on the Rhinegeist Brewery guest line. Austin Crocher coming up about 18 minutes from now. Continued conversation, continued calls. Celebrating a Game 6 win of the Pacers, and we're doing it here on The Fan. Hey, it's Jake Query from Query & Company. I thought last night, under the lights, again, there were two players, and that's what's so great about this team. And listen, there is the possibility that they go into Game 7 and they struggle, or the ball's just not dropping, or the synergy is too much to overcome. That's possible. And you're going to have, as a fan, the impulse, the instinct to get frustrated and throw in the towel and be like, "Well, I hate sports." I understand all of that. But I'm going to go back to what I said last night. I'm at the game and I'm waiting in line to get a hot dog. And I turn around and there's a kid behind me. He was probably 10. And I said, I was kind of talking to he and his dad. It wasn't like I just all of a sudden just decided to jump in and have a conversation with the kid. But
I was really concerned.
Yeah. And I said, here's the thing. I've been coming to games for this team since I was your age. He was a really nice little kid. It wasn't like he was like, who is this guy? And I kind of jokingly said, you may be the age I am right now before this happens again. You just don't know. So just be sure you enjoy this. And at 10, I don't know that you grasp that. But there was part of me deep down, I'm not going to lie, that thought to myself, maybe, just maybe, when that kid is my age, if the Pacers win an NBA title, he'll actually say to somebody, I remember when that guy said something to me the last time that they were in the final. And I would love to think that they're in the finals again next year. You just never know. There are so many variables that go into it. You just never know. But the thing about, it's one thing to have a team. I can only imagine how great it must have been to be a Chicago Bulls fan in the 90s. But if you're calling in to radio shows back then, you're like, Jordan and Pippen. Kukoc is great. Horace Grant's great. Rodman got a ton of rebounds, but it's Jordan. Jordan Pippen. And you knew that the rest of it, okay, it was an unbelievable time, and that was a historically great team. I'm taking nothing away from it. And Halliburton has been a great player. But and Pascal Siakam's been a great player. But what makes this team particularly special is the fact that you just never know where it's going to come from. And I thought last night Miles Turner was outstanding defensively. Chet Holmgren, like you hardly even heard about. Started out looking like he was going to, have some games or have a game. But then after that, just kind of was there. A lot of that was the interior defense of Indiana. Siakam played well. But I thought Andrew Nembhard and as well Obi Toppin were outstanding. Obi Toppin was phenomenal last night. Josh Corbeil, is it Corbeil or Corbeil? I think it's Corbeil, the trainer for the Pacers. He deserves a ton of credit. Josh Corbeil and his staff for getting Tyrese Halliburton ready to go. He deserves a huge tip of the cap. Huge.
Apparently Tyrese's girlfriend Jade deserves some credit too. I don't know if you caught that with Scott Van Pelt last night, Jake, but apparently she's big into Love Island, and they were trying to watch Love Island the other night, and she was like, hey, hold on. Before we get this going, before we start the next episode or before we start this episode, let's get something on your calf. Get some a heating pad going or something.
He didn't think of that himself. I'm not taking anything away from her, but he didn't think of that.
That's just what he said last night on Scott Van Pelt.
He didn't say, my calf's sore. Maybe the Pacers gave me a home remedy. No, yeah, whatever. Honestly, whatever it takes, right? Because he looked, I thought watching him warm up, he was running sprints back and forth just before the starting lineups, and I thought he was wincing. And then the game, hey, was this the biggest ruse ever? Was that what this was? Was this all a watch the left hand, pay no attention to the right? Obviously, I don't personally believe that. But he looked good. But I thought that when you have Obi Toppin, it's hard to say, Eddie, let me ask you this. In your opinion, Eddie, who do you think are the four most popular Indiana Pacers?
TJ McConnell, Tyrese, Obi Toppin, Miles Turner, and
Hold on.
Pascal.
So you said TJ in order.
Oh,
If
in
you,
order?
In order, the top 4 most popular players.
Tyrese, number 1. I think Turner would be number 2. Siakam 3, McConnell 4, Toppin 5.
Yeah,
I could see McConnell being up there.
I think
a little
McConnell's
higher.
second.
Okay.
I mean,
Yes.
particularly now, right?
Yeah.
But I think it's Turner Tyrese number 1 for sure. McConnell in the moment is 2, but in totality, yes, it's probably Turner. And then I think McConnell, and I think Toppin might be. Everyone loves the play of Siakam, but I don't know that people love that, and they don't just like the personality, but Obi Toppin just has this engaging, gregarious personality where he's going around and he's high-fiving people and he's fist-bumping the crowd and he's incorporating everybody. It's pretty awesome. Austin Crocher, been a guest throughout the course of the finals, so why stop now? Joins us next.
You're listening to Query and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Good evening and welcome to a night of playoff basketball with the Indiana Pacers. Tonight, the NBA Finals continue as the Pacers take on the Oklahoma City Thunder at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. Halliburton attacks, kicking to Neesmith. Open man in the corner. Nembhard bounces once and hits another three. Pass stolen by McConnell. McConnell to the top. Toppin lets it fly and delivers a three.
What hands by McConnell there.
Three ball long, rebound floats out to the foul line. Hartenstein grabbed it, lost it, picked up by Joe, and now stolen by Halliburton. Pacers have the ball. They've got numbers. Open man, far corner, and that's a Neesmith three. Jalen Williams has his pass deflected. Halliburton steals it into the open floor. He got it to Siakam, who threw down the right-hand tomahawk. It's a 20-point lead.
Put him in the basket. Pascal Siakam.
Down to 8 seconds to play. McConnell on the drive in the lane. Open man, and Toppin missed the three. Rebound punched outside. Shepard fires from the top. Good. He hit it, and that's going to count. He hit a three as time expired. The lead is 30. Final score. The Indiana Pacers 108. The Oklahoma City Thunder 91.
The best two words in sports. Game 7.
One game. This is what it's all about. This is what you dream about growing up, this kind of opportunity.
There's nothing like a Game 7. There's nothing like a Game 7 in the NBA Finals. Dreamed of being in this situation my whole life, so to be here is really exciting. What's happened in the past doesn't matter. What happened today doesn't matter. It's all about one game.
Hope that the Pacers go out and smoke them at Oklahoma City, and we will watch the Thunder fall in game number 7. Pacers last night winners in game number 6, and we are back now to the euphoria on the highs and lows of the emotion of sports as this franchise is 4 quarters, 1 game, 1 win away officially from winning the first NBA title in the history of the franchise. Good afternoon to you. My name is Jake Query. Eddie Garrison here as well. It is Query and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. Lots of heroics last night. Obi Toppin was great. Ben Shepard played well. Tyrese Halliburton worked through the injury and was back to Tyrese Halliburton. And TJ McConnell continued to have heroics. And I was curious after the game, now that you know that I have trademarked Why Not Indiana, I'm curious how long a trademark lasts, because T.J. McConnell was called by Tyrese Halliburton the Great White Hope, and I wondered if that means that Austin Crocher's trademark from 2000 has worn off over the course of a quarter century. He joins us now on the Rheingeist Brewery guest line. Austin, a win away. Did you think we'd be here?
Unbelievable. I think from that first game, against the Cavaliers, or I guess it was the second game, you just have looked at this team like something is clicking that you don't see happen very often. There's something special about this team, and every game that they've been in, you've always felt like there was a chance. And even when they're down, how many times have we seen them down 20 points and you say to yourself, God, it's not over. There's a chance. And in a one-game scenario with what we have seen from this team and this playoff run, Jake, it's hard to put into words. You can taste how close it is, and you've seen the way that they have played. And I think one of the big question marks I had was, were we going to kind of see this Pacers offensive onslaught that you saw in the first 3 rounds of the playoffs that you really hadn't seen in the finals yet? Just the stifling defense of Oklahoma City, and the Pacers obviously found other ways to win, but they finally felt like they broke free a little bit at the offensive end, and this is the team that we have seen. And if there's any way that they can carry that over to Game 7, Jake, it's going to be a lot of fun on Sunday.
Okay, so let me ask you this, Austin. Offensively speaking, when you have, you were a player, when you have these layoffs, you're looking at essentially 72 hours between games. When you're coming off of that, whether it be psychologically or just like in the zone type thing, can that in fact carry over as an athlete, or is there really just no way to predict that?
Yeah, I mean that's hard to tell. I think, maybe it was somewhere in the back of their head, like, we can't get free of this team. We're going to have to find other ways to win. They're just so harassing, and now you've got in the back of your head, hey, we can do this. Like, we've finally shown, the offensive level that we have played with through the playoffs. We can do that against this team, and I think that there's no reason why it can't carry over. This is an interesting series, Jake, in that every team that had to have a win got it. The Pacers stole game 1. Oklahoma City, they had to win game 2, right? You can't go down 0-2 both of those games coming at home. They responded. Pacers win game 3. OKC has to win game 4 or they go down the dreaded 3-1. And then even in game 5, right, it's kind of a must win for Oklahoma City, or they go back to Indiana down 3-2, having to win on the road. So they win that game, and now all of a sudden the Pacers obviously are facing elimination, and they step up with a performance that, I mean, will go down as one of the greats in Pacers franchise history. And now the ultimate, right, a game 7, both of these teams, win and you are immortalized and you have a championship. And I really think that we are going to see an epic game. There is not going to be a blowout. You just have the sense that it is going to come down to the last couple of minutes.
When you're watching that game, I mean, they showed you up on the video board. I think Sam Perkins, Travis Best you were with, Mark Jackson was up there as well. Is that the first time, Austin, in a long time that all of you guys have been able to watch games and be 7th graders?
Yeah, I'll tell you what. I mean, we were jumping up and down a couple of times. The first one is Siakam's dunk. And it just, these things aren't planned. They're not scripted. You don't stand up and jump because you should or you think a camera's on you. It's like you're a little kid watching it on television, and you just have this emotional reaction to something that you're seeing. And I mean, it was simultaneous, right? You see the steal, you see the no-look pass, you get it to Siakam, the dunk on Williams, and everyone in there was acting like a 10-year-old that was sitting in front of a television like a kid that we all have. And then the other one was Shepherd. Was that at the end of the third quarter?
Correct. That put him up 30 at the end of the third. That was unbelievable. That was, Austin, I'll tell you what. When I say this, and I'm being serious, I've been fortunate enough to have seen a lot of great sports moments in my life, right? Sometimes I was working, so they become antiseptic to you. But I think when Shepherd hit that 3 and then turned around and put his arms out and he had this look of like everything's going our way, that might have been the biggest endorphin, like euphoria moment in sports for me in quite some time. It just, everything hit me at that moment.
You're right, and it's weird in that, it wasn't like we were up. It was a tie game, and that shot gave us the lead. It's not like if he had missed that shot, it still was probably a foregone conclusion that the Pacers were going to win that game. But there was just something about that shot and the series of events that led up to it. And you see the clock running down. Is he going to get it off? The buzzer goes off before the ball goes through the net. It hits. His reaction, the way that he turned around. I mean, you're right. I mean, it was absolutely unbelievable.
I'll tell you what it was, Austin, and I want you to expand on this, actually. The reason that play was so fabulous and the reason it was so euphoric is because of the fact that the ball got cycled back out, and I think it was Nembhard who only had time to do one thing, and that was literally not even pass, but simply almost deflect the ball right to Shepherd. But the wherewithal and the selflessness to show right then that it was an instinctive play, and the instinct was to look for your teammate. Now, that's not necessarily common in the NBA in 2025. That, to me, is the perfect encapsulation of this Pacers team and why 18,000 people in that arena are in love with them. That, to me, was the moment.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, and there were probably another 10 moments that just didn't reek of the same significance, right? Maybe it was a shot that was missed, but it's just a team that does things differently. And, I think a lot of it comes from the makeup of the roster. You've got Siakam and Halliburton, who are making, roughly $40 million a year, whereas stars on other teams are making $55, $60 million a year. And, that kind of trickles down to, how are the Pacers so deep? Well, they have to make that money spread out differently. And there's just a different level of talent and understanding of how to play at the, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 position on the roster. And then you have a coach that just, again, I don't think there's anyone better than Rick Carlisle. And I think a huge part is the trust that he has instilled in the depth of their bench. And I think you got to give a lot of credit to superstars and Halliburton and Siakam. There's a lot of stars in this league that they don't want someone else getting the ball late in the game. It is my ball, my shot to make or miss. And from the coaching staff to the star players, it is making the extra pass. It is trusting in your teammates. And how many times? Jake, it's just, I go through every one of these games in which the Pacers play huge, and it's never the same guy. It really is remarkable the quality of play that you are getting so far down the roster this late in the season. Everyone talks about the rotations shrink in the playoffs, and Shepherd was not in the rotation for a good part of the year. Austin, he had some injuries, and
it's difficult to tell when. Like, for example, for Oklahoma City, it's kind of clear when they waved the white flag, when they empty their bench. And from Rick Carlisle's standpoint, you're kind of like, I don't know, has he emptied the bench or not here? Because this is a pretty solid rotation he's got out here. You know what I mean? With all due respect to Johnny Furphy and James Johnson, they're the only two guys that when they're out there are not part of some sort of realistic scenario where they could be on the floor.
Yeah. It's just, again, it's the roster creation. It's the coach that's making the most of it. It's the personality of the players. And, I really think that you are going to see, it's a copycat league, and you're going to see a lot of teams like, hey, maybe we don't need 3 superstars. Maybe we need to go 8, 9 deep. Maybe we need to have a coach. Listen, Tibbs being fired absolutely plays into that, right? Like, he was probably the guy that goes in the shortest in his rotation in the entire NBA. The Pacers, Carlisle probably goes the deepest rotation in the NBA. And that was, if not the biggest storyline, certainly a big one in why the Pacers ended up beating the Knicks, and the guy gets fired the next day. It's just, it is, again, I played for Rick as an assistant coach for 3 years. He was a head coach for 3 years. I consider him a friend, so maybe I'm a little bit biased, but this is something that started very early in the year. You don't cultivate depth and, the way that this team plays in a playoff run. This started way back in October, and you just can't give him enough credit. And again, it takes the right kind of superstar to be okay with this. And not all players in the NBA are like that.
Austin, lastly, with this happening last night and going back now to Oklahoma City, Eddie Garrison pointed this out. I think there's probably a lot of truth to it, that Oklahoma City came out in that game. They obviously it was close. It was close through a quarter. Once Indiana did break free, to use your words a little bit, maybe Oklahoma City thinks to themselves, they had the benefit in their mind of thinking to themselves, we still get to go back home, right? Does that kind of a differential in a game, that kind of an avalanche that took place, that kind of tsunami of momentum that Indiana had, does it in any way, shape, or form stay in the younger minds of Oklahoma City going back for Game 7?
Yeah, great question. I will say that Oklahoma City has responded every time they had to have a win. Again, we mentioned it earlier in the show, they got stunned in Game 1. And they played great in Game 2. Pacers win Game 3. OKC comes out in 4. And I expect that they will shake that off. They are a young team. They're going to play better at home. I have been in that building a couple of times doing radio, not in this type of environment. Everything you hear is that it is every bit on par with, what the Pacers have at Bankers Life Fieldhouse. And I think that I think that they are going to respond, and I think it is. I really just have this feeling that it is going to be an epic Game 7. Just with the way that the Pacers have had so many of these moments already this year in the playoffs, I expect that you're going to see it. Maybe not the best of OKC, but something very close to it, and as well for the Pacers.
I'm nervous for it. I look forward to it. I'm nervous for it. I mentioned earlier, Austin, I don't know if I should be offended by this or not, but Shannon called me an hour ago to say that she's going to Oklahoma City.
Yeah, I don't blame her. It's weird. I felt so emotionally drained last night. Even in the fourth quarter when the game was over, it was like, this is it.
I didn't want to leave.
We are here.
I didn't want to leave.
We are in this moment where, 48 minutes of basketball, and it is a huge moment, and I can't wait to watch. And I'm not sure how it's going to play out, because the Pacers have, in my opinion, so many different avenues to success. They have won games with, certain guys playing great, other guys, Miles Turner wasn't much of a factor. It doesn't matter.
He was good defensively last night, though.
Yeah. And again, it's whack-a-mole with the Pacers. You don't know who's going to pop up at any moment, but it just seems like in those moments, someone does, and I expect the same thing on Sunday.
So here's the thing. I've got to go. I'm happy to do it, but I'm doing the IndyCar race at Road America on Sunday up in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin. It's about 4.5, 5-hour drive. It gets over. I would get back right about probably mid-first quarter is when I'll get back. And she literally called an hour ago and I want to know what Austin Crocher would do in this situation, okay? She says, you need to call me. So we go to a commercial break. I call her, and she says, you're going to hate me. And I said, okay. And she said, I just got a phone call, and they said, we want you to come to Oklahoma City. Would you be mad if I went there, meaning that I would not be able to watch the end of the game with you should they win it? Now, what would Austin Crocher do in that situation?
Just the history for her dad and, growing up, I'm sure the way that she did with this, you got to be happy for her that she's got a chance to be in that building with potentially what could happen. So I would give her a kiss, send her on her way, and, give her luck. That's a, again, a once in a lifetime moment.
I without hesitation said, you got to go. You got to go.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
You got to go. And then, and that means that I can just find somebody and drink a ton of beer Sunday night if they win, right? So we're all good. We're all good. Right.
Absolutely.
And it'll be Rhine Guys probably, because Austin Crocher's on the Rhine Guys Brewery guest line. So as always, appreciate it. Austin, appreciate it. I know it was short notice last night when I reached out to you. It was late. And we'll see what happens, man. I'm excited for it. It's going to be a lot of fun, and we appreciate the breakdowns as always.
All right. I love it. Thanks for having me on, Jake, as always.
All right. Appreciate it. Austin Crocher joining us on the Rhine Guys Brewery guest line. It is – I mentioned it off the top of the show, and I'm going to mention it again. What happened last night? And you're going to hear me say this probably 3 more times between now and the end of the show. But if there's one thing I've learned in life, it's this. It's that sometimes you hear a song. Sometimes you see a commercial. Sometimes you look at a photo, and it reminds you of a special moment or a special memory or a special era. And then you look at it for a second, or you listen to the music for a second, or maybe even it's a scent or a smell that awakens something in you. And when that happens, you say to yourself, that was really a special time. And I wish when I was going through it, I would have realized how special it is now to look back on. And last night in that game, as the game was mid-third, maybe early fourth quarter, and the Pacers were well ahead, and I was still nervous. It was not a guarantee. I was still a little bit nervous by it. And at times I thought, you got to be careful here. This is getting dangerous. You can't let Gilgeous-Alexander get going and all of that. But I began thinking about, because I was trying to soak in the moment, and I was trying to be aware of and soak in and take and become encapsulated by everything that was happening around me. And yes, I know how incredibly fortunate I am, and literally simply by stroke of luck and timing, to have the job that I have, to be able to talk about sports, when as a kid growing up in this town, my two biggest loves in life were this city and sports. That's it. That's all I've ever known. And so when I was a kid, if you would have told me that I had this opportunity to share and embrace and involve people in talking about and celebrating sports, I would have done backflips. And so to be in that moment and to know that I had a professional obligation to have the mic, I thought to myself, but at the same time, the kid in me and the other love of this city comes into play. And so that's the route I've chosen and how to express during this run in the finals. So last night I'm sitting there and I'm looking around trying to absorb it all. There's a timeout, the crowd's raucous, and I'm looking around. And I looked up. I kid you not. I said this earlier, and this is not embellishment. It's not retroactive. It's not something I came up with last night. It happened in the moment. I looked up and I saw the banners. And I saw Roger Brown, and I saw Mel Daniels, and I saw George McGinnis, and I saw Reggie Miller, and I saw Jim Morris, and I saw Melvin Simon, and Tamika Catchings and Lynn Dunn on the Fever side of things. But I saw the names of the men that were the foundation of this franchise. And I was reminded of the fact that Reggie Miller, all I knew about him was that he was in Sports Illustrated in 1987, and I had a copy of it because Steve Alford was in the same issue. And Reggie Miller said three-pointers were like a layup, and I thought he was cocky. And I didn't like him, and I wanted Reggie Miller. And then they drafted, or I wanted Steve Alford, excuse me, and they drafted Reggie Miller. And then he came here, and they had this really cheesy, on the bad Market Square Arena Jumbotron that was just used with like yellow and blue lights. When he would score a basket, they had a little animation of two hands in cement, and it said Hollywood. And it was like, okay, we're supposed to pretend this guy's Hollywood because he's from Riverside, California, and played at Los Angeles, at UCLA. And then last night, and of course we know how Reggie Miller became through my adolescence and through my high school years and into my early years and into the years with my buddies and I, first being able to go to bars and watch games. And we fell in love with Reggie Miller and the Indiana Pacers, and Reggie Miller was one of us. And he had that chip on the shoulder of being one of us. And he represented Indiana, and we loved it. And then last night, while I'm watching that game, I looked up to scan the crowd, and I saw the Reggie Miller banner, and I thought about all of that, and I thought about all that history and the growth and everything that came with it. And then I could hear the crowd getting champed, and I could hear Gene Hackman's voice, and I knew they are doing what they do on a number of games. Maybe they do it every game, I'm not even sure, where they play the clip of Norman Dale getting his guys fired up by clapping and saying, all right, let's go. And the crowd's getting louder as it's playing. And my eyes are now scanning down from the rafters to the video board where I see the Gene Hackman clip. And I'm scanning down, watching the crowd, and I'm watching everybody, and they're all looking up at the video board, and they're starting to clap. But as my eyes scan down, I see one guy, one fan on the floor, one fan. And he stands up, and he's clapping along with it. And he's clapping louder, and he's clapping faster. And the only time he's not clapping, he's putting his arms out to the side to raise them up to say to the rest of the arena, let's go. And he's the leader of the fans. And he's wearing jeans and a jersey with the gold shirt. And it's Reggie Miller, not Reggie Miller, the ambassador, not Reggie Miller, the chip on his shoulder, not Reggie Miller, the choke sign, not Reggie Miller, the 8 points in 9 seconds, not Reggie Miller, the Olympian, not Reggie Miller, Hollywood. It was Reggie Miller, Pacer fan. Reggie Miller, the epicenter, the face of this franchise for a quarter century, was like every other 18,000 people in that arena last night, and he was strictly a fan. And his fandom has encapsulated him and overtaken him from the TNT Reggie Miller, from the objective Reggie Miller. And he's now completely involved and engrossed in what this franchise has done for this city, which has engulfed all of us with this effervescent, unbeatable, impermeable pride about the selflessness of this team. And that team that is one win, 4 quarters, 1 game away from delivering an NBA title to this city. And I loved everything about it. And that moment in time, I was so thankful that I took the time to encapsulate and look around and absorb and soak in what was happening in the moment. so that I didn't see it on a film clip 20 years from now and think, that was fun. I wish I'd known it then. And I just hope that everybody's able to do that because this is so much fun. And the ride continues Sunday night. Darnell Hillman still with the franchise. Played with some of those guys I talked about. Joins us next. have to win one game. One game. 4 quarters. They don't even have to win all 4 quarters. They just have to win the game. And they will be NBA champions. They will become the first franchise in basketball to win both an ABA and an NBA title. And, of course, it would be for the franchise not the first time that they won a Game 7 on the road for a crown. One of the players that was on the court when they did exactly that back in 1973 in Louisville, Kentucky, by beating the Kentucky Colonels, Darnell Hillman joining us on the program. He is, of course, still with the franchise, actively seen at Pacer games. He's director of camps, clinics, and alumni relations for the Pacers, and just an overall great ambassador for the franchise and the game itself. Darnell, 1 win away from an NBA title. How are you?
I'm real good myself, and boy, what a game that was last night. Brought back ABA memories for me, and certainly one of the things I like about this franchise and team is we won all our championships on the road.
It's a good that is a listen. We need that streak to continue, right? Just one game, right?
At tradition, just call it tradition. They win the game. It's traditional.
See, I can roll with. Keep the tradition going, right? Darnell Hillman joining us. Ryan Geist Brewery guest line, by the way. Darnell, let's begin with this, and I want to go back to when you were playing in that 1973 title, and I realize that basketball's changed, players have changed. It's a different league for that matter. But from a team standpoint, is there something to be said about the tightness of a group that has to happen when you go on the road because you get this us against the world mentality? Can you benefit from that when you go on the road and it's this hostile environment and it's just you and your brothers?
Yes, you can, very much so. You start to believe in one another. And the thing that happens with that is it's a little thing called chemistry. And you do get that effect that, hey, it's us against the road. And sometimes if the team is strong enough, it's us against the coach. If the coach is not going along with his players, then, hey, we think we've got a good chance here, coach. Come on, give us a shot at it. And this team here that we've seen, the chemistry that has formed with them so fast in less than a year is remarkable. And if they can remain together for another year or two, I could see them making another run at this.
Yeah, no question about that. And, with that, Darnell, obviously you played for, you had Slick Leonard, right? Legendary coach. Rick Carlisle has cemented himself and moved it up, I would think, into upper stratosphere of coaches, certainly in the NBA history. What has been your assessment or your evaluation of the job Rick Carlisle's done with this group?
The very fact that he's gotten them to buy into his plan, his game plan, his theory when they're out there, and he gives them a green light. One of the big things I think he's been able to get these guys to do is share the basketball. If you haven't had a shot in a second and a half to 3 seconds, that ball is moving to somebody else's open, and they're always looking for the open guy. And certainly most of them have become pretty proficient at learning how to shoot that three-pointer.
Darnell Hillman is our guest on the Ryan Geist Brewery guest line. Darnell, that game last night, I'll tell you what, I'll ask you this. You've watched a little basketball. You've played a little basketball. You know the game a little bit. You've been around it. You've watched a lot of teams over the years at Gainbridge Fieldhouse and Market Square. When did you start to feel comfortable last night that game was in the bag?
When the coach finally put my boy in, Mr. McConnell. When you finally put McConnell in, McConnell has a way of picking up the intensity and their speed. And the guys have learned to understand it. If they don't go when he goes, they may not get a shot because McConnell will pass that ball off. But if nobody's there, he knows how to go to the rack and score. He scored inside the paint so effectively last night. I think that was a big move when our threes were not falling consistently. So McConnell is my guy.
So T.J. McConnell, Darnell Hillman is the leader of the T.J. McConnell fan club. Is that right?
You can count on that.
I like that, man. I like that.
Take that to the bank. That's my guy right there.
Did you guys have? You know what's funny, Darnell? I mean, throughout your career, whether it be working for the franchise or as a player, do you always need a guy like that? Do you kind of always need that guy that everybody, other teams may not realize? They just think of it as like the little yip dog, but the locker room itself knows exactly who that guy is, right? And they're like, that's our guy, and there's something about him that everybody gets in line. There's an alpha about him, right? How is that rare? Is that rare for teams?
I don't think it's rare. I think it's rare if your teammates don't recognize that. Most of the time, once you start in training camp, guys get to learn and watch one another and see just how intense things can be. And certainly, TJ comes to practice with a professional attitude, just like he plays the ball game. Your ball game should be easy. If you're practicing correctly and getting everything done at practice, a ball game should be very, very easy. But sometimes you can look at a ball game and say, well, these guys didn't practice very well or didn't practice very smartly. So that whenever I've seen TJ, he's always been out there giving that 110% of what he has, because the other part of this is a player's shot does not always fall. But there's never enough to take off on defense, even if your game is not going through the basket like you want. TJ's out there playing his heart out.
Darnell, what would it mean for you, for your late teammates George McGinnis and Roger Brown, Mel Daniels, for Slick, for all of those guys, what would it mean for you if they're able to get this done?
It'd mean an awful lot. Just the fact that those names you just named there, these guys aren't around to see this. And if they were, I could see all of us getting back together as a group and certainly expressing just how rare being able to get to the top and win a championship. Because once you get there, this family or relationship that these guys are going to have after winning a championship goes on for the rest of your life. I just talked to Bob Netolicky night before last. Saw Billy Keller yesterday at the ball game. Talked to Steve Green often, and Don Boozy from time to time. And our trainer is still here, and we're still all very connected. So it would mean an awful lot if these guys could be there to see that.
I saw that David Craig was at the game last night. Bob Netolicky is going to join us on the show, as a matter of fact, coming up about a half an hour from now. Billy Keller we had on when Purdue was in the Final Four. You guys are such an integral part of, before we let you go, Darnell, you're such an integral part of the community. Were you aware, even as you guys were winning it, you're going down to Louisville, you're winning a Game 7 on the road, then you're coming back to Indianapolis. Were you aware in the moment of the fact that you had cemented yourself as a group and as a fraternity of guys into the hearts forever of the sports landscape of Indianapolis?
I would have to say yes, simply because the year before we had won the championship while on the road, and returning back to Indy, there were 4,000 people at the airport. They wouldn't let us off the plane with so many people at our gate. So they put us in squad cars and raced us down to 38th and College, where the office was located. And there was 5,000 people there in that intersection. So after celebrating and going through that, when we went back to Kentucky and were able to beat them, then come in, and it's like, well, you know what, back-to-back championships, they can take a lot of things from you, but the history books will always remember those names and those guys that played on those teams and what those teams have done.
Do they get it done Sunday night, Darnell?
I think so. What I really like about this team is they are just as tough on the road as they are at home. They seem to play a lot better when they're on the road. I guess it's that whole enemy in the stands kind of thing that gives you that feel. Kind of reminds you of that game when Reggie gave him 8 points in 8 points in 9 seconds, baby.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's
You know,
right.
it's that kind of thing, that sense that you get with that. And these guys certainly have done that throughout the season. Right after the All-Star game, the number of games that they came from behind to win. And it was, I remember at least 4 to 5, they were down by 20 plus and come back to win the game and snatch it out of the jaws of the home team. That's remarkable. That's not an easy thing to do, and they did it all season long. And the other part to it is it wasn't just one guy.
Darnell, we wish him. Oh, sorry about that. Didn't mean to cut you off there. Sorry about that.
No, not a problem. There's always been someone else, not just Halliburton doing it, but some other guys came in there and win big shots for the game. So I like the team. I think they got a good chance. Our bench is very strong. I don't think that OKC can match our bench play.
I like it. I hope you're right. And certainly, if they do it and there's a parade, I want you up there with T.J. McConnell. All right, that's the one rule that I'm going to enforce. Right?
If you'll have me.
I think he will. Darnell, I appreciate it, man. Enjoy it. All right.
All right, you too. Thanks.
All right, there he is, Dr. Dunk, Darnell Hillman, joining us on the other side, a guy that was firing the T-shirt cannon last night into the crowd, and it was not hard for him to oversee it because he's 7'4". Rick Smits is next. Pacers 1 win away from an NBA title after last night's amazing, incredible, energetic game number 6 victory over the Oklahoma City Thunder. One that was tight for a quarter. Then the Pacers kind of, as Austin Crocher said, kind of broke free a little bit. And then the shots started falling and everything went their way. Oak City eventually kind of waved the flag. And now Sunday night, 8 o'clock, will be game number 7. Our next guest on the Rhinegeist Brewery guest line really needs no introduction in Indianapolis, but I'll give him one anyway. He was the 2nd overall pick in the 1988 draft and became a fan favorite. And last night said, you know what, that looks like so much fun, getting Boomer to fling T-shirts in the crowd. I'm just going to grab the cannon myself. Rick Smits joins us on the show. Rick, you were quite the T-shirt shooter last night.
Yeah, thank you. That was a lot of fun.
Listen, the whole night was fun, right? I mean, I want to go back to this, and I'm curious. I asked Austin this, but I'll pose the same question to you. You know, as a guy that played the game, and when you're involved in those moments as a player, maybe sometimes you don't get swept up in the euphoria, the excitement, the energy of the building. Is it fun for you to watch that last night and to see that and to know how close this group is?
Yes, it definitely was. You get a little bit different perspective as a fan, and it still brings back a lot of memories. And super excited for this team, for these guys to be this close, and one win away from a championship. Man, awesome! Really excited about it.
What about this group impresses you? Like whether it be a particular player or a style. When you watch this team, what is it that particularly is appealing to Rick Smits?
Well, there's just so many guys that can step up and have a big game at any given night. Just the combination of all the guys. That's what impressed me. You know, the teamwork. There's no one guy that's going to get all the points every night. You know, just so many weapons. Excellent coaching, of course, with Rick Carlisle and his staff. Yeah, that's what impresses me. You know, these guys all seem to be a bunch of good guys. Seem to all get along. All work hard. Don't matter who scores the ball as long as they end up with a victory.
You know, you were on teams. Rick Smits, our guest, Rhinegeist Brewery guest line. The challenge of, and you guys were able to do this. I mean, 95 comes to mind. I realize it was not the finals, but the New York series was so big back then, that rivalry. And to go back and have to go back to New York for a Game 7 and win a Game 7 in New York in 95. How big a challenge is that? What can you take us through kind of maybe what the mental challenge is for the Pacers now to know that they still have to get one left and it's at a place that's really hard to play?
It's tough, but you got to just think about the basics. You know, you're on a basketball court that's the same size as the one that you are at home. You know, you just beat these guys by a considerable amount. You try to carry that momentum over, keep the same mindset. To me, it's all psychological at this point. You know, I used to like to pretend that the guys that were cheering for the opposing team were cheering for me. You know, and if they can do that, get this mindset right, pretend like they're at home. You know, play like they're at home, and just see what happens.
I guess the other side of it would be this, and that is, do you think, and I pose this to Austin Crocher, your former teammate as well, do you think for Oklahoma City, you know, they're a younger team. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's a wonderful player. I mean, he's an MVP. And he seems to be a very nice young guy as well. But he's still a younger player. For Oklahoma City now to have to go back and play against a team that just beat you that soundly 3 days before when they take the floor on Sunday, as a player, does that stick with you, or do you pretty much etch-a-sketch wipe that clean instantly?
Yeah, I don't know. I think that varies from player to player. You know, I can't get in any player's head, but to me, it's, hey, let's forget what just happened and move on. You know, look back towards look back, you know, like, hey, we beat these guys before. You know, that's the mindset you're going to have again. But I don't know. That's going to vary from different, from player to player. And I think the coaching is important in that. The coaches should be able to control the mindset of the players somewhat and somehow. I think Rick has done a real good job at that.
Rick Carlisle, who obviously, you knew. I mean, you had Rick Carlisle as an assistant coach, Rick Smits. How have you seen him change, I guess, or grow as a coach? And what jumps out at you of your memories of being around him in the earlier days of his coaching career?
Well, I don't know. Of course, he was the assistant back then, but even though Larry was the head coach, Rick did most of the coaching, especially on offense. He was kind of our offensive coordinator at the time. He's just gotten better and better with experience. We've seen what he did in Dallas, and of course, hoping that he'll do the same thing here for us on Sunday.
For you, Rick Smits, I want to get this perspective from you. Rick Smits, our guest on the Rheingold Brewery guest line. You spent your entire career with this franchise. You were kind of thrust into a starting role early because Steve Stepanovich got hurt. I think maybe even before, the spotlight kind of went on you early, right? And then it all came together for you around the time that it did for the franchise. And you got to the finals, and, everyone knows the history there. What does this franchise mean to you, Rick Smits, in terms of being able to see them right now on the doorstep? And just for you, not only is your growth as a basketball player, but as a young man in a country that you didn't grow up in and a city that took you in, what does all of it mean when you look back on it?
Oh, it means a lot, for sure. This was my family for 12 years, well, even longer. I've always considered the Pacers my team. I've always been a fan. I might not have followed them as closely as I do now after I retired. I probably took a little bit of a break from the NBA and watching every game, 5, 6, 7, 8 years. But recently, I watch every Pacers game. Man, it'd be so awesome to bring this town, this organization, the Simons, everybody behind the scenes, bring these guys a championship. Man, I would love to see this. The fans have been great all these years, and it would be so awesome. I'd be so happy to see a championship come to Indy, and definitely well deserving. The organization's been so good for so many guys. Look what they've done now. They're bringing back all these old players. I got to see a bunch of guys I haven't seen in a long time, and if I can, I want to give a shout out to Michael Hornbeck and Karen Atkinson for putting this together, bringing the alumni back and making us feel at home and treating us all first class. It's been so much fun here at these playoffs.
Well, they're well deserving of that praise because they work not only with the current players but the former as well, and keeping that family atmosphere with it. Rick, yes. I'm curious, which former teammate were you most excited to see because either hadn't seen him in a while or just had fun stories, whatever else? Was there one guy that when you saw him, you always have that one guy that you see and you're like, oh my gosh, who was it?
Not just one guy. I got to see Dill Davis, Antonio Davis. I see Derek McKee quite a bit because he's got courtside seats, season tickets here. I've seen Reggie quite a few times. Got to see Mark Jackson yesterday, but the guy I hadn't seen in a while was Steve Stepanovich. He showed up yesterday too.
I didn't realize Stipo was here. That's cool.
Yeah. I think he was up in the suite. Big Sam Perkins was here. I hadn't seen him in a while. And Travis Bass, not yesterday, but I've seen him during the playoffs. It was good to catch up with him.
I'm going to ask you one question, Rick, in parting that I'd asked Austin this, okay? You guys were so close. Literally in terms of as a group, but you were so close to winning the first championship for this franchise in 2000 by getting to the finals and then losing to Los Angeles, a fabulous Lakers team, but it was a very good Pacer team as well. Jealousy is the wrong word because that's an ugly word. But is there a little bit of mixed emotion of seeing a group that could possibly do and take that last step that you guys were denied?
Well, not really. At least it's not here yet. I've become a fan, as I said earlier, and really love this team, really love these guys. No, I don't think there will be. I can picture a parade. I can picture them meeting the president or whatever, and no, there won't be any jealousy.
Do you get more nervous as a player or a fan?
Good question. Well, I think I was more nervous as a player. Yeah, for sure. Definitely more nervous as a player.
I mean, you didn't look nervous up against Patrick Ewing. You kind of owned Patrick Ewing, didn't you?
I don't know about that.
I always thought you were in the grill of Patrick Ewing, in the head of Patrick Ewing, but great player, obviously, and great moments for sure. Rick, it was fun last night watching you have fun with it, and I know the fans appreciate it, seeing you guys embrace this run. It's 4 quarters, it's 1 game, and we're going to root like hell, but I certainly appreciate it. And, in fact, if that parade takes place, I am obligating you to rejoin us before or afterwards to give your thoughts.
All right. Let me know.
All right.
Looking forward.
Much appreciated. Rick Smith's joining us on the Rhinegeist Brewery guest line. We'll come back. I want your guys' thoughts as well, and then Bob Netolicky going to join us in the 2 o'clock hour.
Good evening and welcome to a night of playoff basketball with the Indiana Pacers. Tonight, the NBA Finals continue as the Pacers take on the Oklahoma City Thunder at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. Halliburton attacks, kicking to Neesmith. Open man in the corner. Nembhard bounces once and hits another three. Pass stolen by McConnell. McConnell to the top. Toppin lets it fly and delivers a three.
What hands by McConnell there.
Three ball long. Rebound floats out to the foul line. Hartenstein grabbed it, lost it. Picked up by Joe and now stolen by Halliburton. Pacers have the ball. They've got numbers. Open man, far corner. And that's a Neesmith three. Jalen Williams has his pass deflected. Halliburton steals it into the open floor. He got it to Siakam, who threw down the right-hand tomahawk. It's a 20-point lead.
Put him in the basket. Pascal Siakam.
Down to 8 seconds to play. McConnell on the drive in the lane. Open man. And Toppin missed the three. Rebound punched outside. Shepard fires from the top.
Good.
He hit it, and that's going to count. He hit a three as time expired. The lead is 30. Final score. The Indiana Pacers 108. The Oklahoma City Thunder 91.
The best two words in sports. Game 7.
One game. This is what it's all about. This is what you dream about growing up, this kind of opportunity.
There's nothing like a Game 7. There's nothing like a Game 7 in the NBA Finals. Dreamed of being in this situation my whole life, so to be here is really exciting. What's happened in the past doesn't matter. What happened today doesn't matter. It's all about one game.
So you heard from Mark Boyle, Eddie Gill, Bill Russell on Game 7, and then, of course, the voices of Rick Carlisle and Tyrese Halliburton. Here it is. After last night's emphatic Game 6 victory, the Indiana Pacers, 4 quarters, 1 win away from an NBA title. It is, and what has happened over the last month or so is incredibly special, and it's rare. And it's why we follow sports. This city, which, I have an unwavering love for, has its flaws. It has its weaknesses. It has its struggles. And yet, there are ebb and flows with any city. This city has areas of it that are an ugly history. It has areas of it that are triumphant. It has parts of its history that, I remember when downtown were just the empty holes, and then eventually they were filled in with Circle Center Mall, and suddenly there was this revitalization. And it's a city that has always had a hope about the fact that there was a brighter reason for sometimes the doldrums we go through. In the wintertime, when it's cold and gray in Indianapolis, you know that the joys and the reward of spring are around the corner. When those holes were empty down off of the old William H. Block building, you knew that eventually that mall was going to be built. When the Hoosier Dome was being built, you knew that the hope and the eventuality was that an NFL franchise could come to this town. And sports are the one thing that unify all of us, as I mentioned earlier. Whether you are from Pendleton or you are from Putnamville, whether you are from Wabash or you are from Whitestown, whether you're from Noblesville or you're from Nineveh, the one thing that oftentimes people of different socioeconomic backgrounds, education level, all of it, come together for is when you walk down the streets the last month and you're wearing a hat and people are just like, go Pacers, yes sirs, whatever it may be, why not Indiana? All of those things. It all comes together, and sports is what unifies us. And last night in particular, when Ben Shepard hit that three to end the third quarter, it wasn't even Ben Shepard hitting that shot as the clock was expiring that put the Pacers up 30. It was the fact that I think it was Andrew Nembhard, when the ball was coming out to him, knew that he didn't have time necessarily to square and shoot, but Shepard was squared up, and he had just enough time to deflect it over to him. He recognized an open teammate when no one else in the arena did. And these are guys that come from different backgrounds. Obi Toppin grew up in New York City. Ben Matherin, grew up speaking French in Canada. Andrew Nimhard played collegiately in the Pacific Northwest. And Tyrese Halliburton grew up in small-town Wisconsin and then Iowa. But they've all come together now collectively for this team. And they've come together before our very eyes in this rebuild, in this franchise that literally 4 years ago were those holes in the ground. We knew of a promise. We knew of a build. We knew that we were starting from the ground up. And that just be patient. And they traded Domas Sabonis, but they traded him for this guy in Halliburton they think is going to be a good player. And they traded for Pascal Siakam, who's an elite-level player. And they drafted Ben Matherin, and they drafted Ben Shepherd, who very few people had heard of. And they still had Miles Turner, and they kept building and facilitating around him. And they drafted Andrew Nimhard late with an auxiliary pick, and then boom, it hits before them. And now all of a sudden it's all come together, and this city is on the brink of collectively embracing and celebrating an NBA title. And it's what we're here for. It's what we come together for, and it's what we put aside our differences for. And it's awesome. And it's why we have an arena, and it's why we have a team, and it's why we have hope. And even if it doesn't come to fruition, we will look back on this run, and we will do so with nostalgia. Because that's what sports often is. It's the chase of a high and the try to rebirth of a high that you felt before. And this city has felt it before, not at the NBA level, but the ABA level, because the Indiana Pacers 3 times won as ABA champions, and all 3 of them, they did it on the road. And one of the guys that was there for 2 of them, Bob Netolicky, joins me now on the Rhinegeist Brewery guest line. Neto, it is a pleasure. How are you?
Good, Jake. I haven't seen you for a while. How you doing?
I'm good. I think the last time I saw you was at a game. I think it was this year, though, right? I mean, obviously, because
it might have been last fall, because I came home for a thing at the horse races, and it was the first game actually.
That's right.
Of the year,
I think you know what? Now you may be right, and you are down in Texas now, if I'm not mistaken. Correct?
Yeah, I moved down here about 3-4 years ago, or 4 years ago. My daughter's husband got a tech job down here, and the grandkids and everybody come down, so we just come down here for a while, but. Indiana's still my home.
Well, let me tell you, in the wintertime, when it's like 10 degrees here, you're probably glad you're in Texas. And then in the summertime, when the Pacers are a win away from winning the NBA title, you probably are thinking to yourself, I'd like to be in Indianapolis, right?
Yeah, I sure would. I talked to Darnell a couple of times. He said, he went to the last couple of games, and it would have been real exciting. And I'm really happy for them. They're surprising a lot of people.
Well, I want to begin with this before we get to this particular installment of the Pacers. Darnell talked about this, but Neto, I want you to kind of add to it. There's a real, I guess, bond. There's a real fraternal feeling amongst, and unfortunately, and I know, in my sympathies to you for it because I know they were brothers to you, but Mel Daniels and George McGinnis and Roger Brown, and then of course Darnell's still around, and Billy Keller, and the different players that were part of that. How much of the solidarity is still there with you guys because of those titles?
Well, I think we had a very unusual team. And before Slick passed, he and I go out and have a few beers and talk. And one thing when Slick started the whole thing, and I think if you'll see it in even at today's game, he said you can have 2 of the greatest players in the world on the team, but if there's no chemistry, there's no togetherness, they just don't win. And that was just from day one. Slick basically said, we're all going to be a family. We're going to party together. We're going to drink together. We're going to live together. And it's kind of the way we were. And if you didn't kind of do that, bye-bye. And as the years went by, I mean, my gosh, even, before Mel passed, Mel Daniels, he'd call me every other day. And all those guys, we would get together, and it was more like a family, more like we were all related, brothers. Slick was like our dad. Of course, he wasn't that old, but we were just a very solid team, and I see very seldom. I don't see that really in today's sports, and it's a shame. And I think money and contracts and people going to where they can get the most money and all this stuff has done that. But we literally back in those days, we stayed with I was offered a good contract. I won't say who with an NBA. I could have jumped leagues. But I didn't want to go anywhere. I wanted to stay with the guys, and the money, of course, wasn't like it is today. But there was just something about that team, and like I said, I really miss Mel and George, and gosh, I look at my pictures on my phone. My gosh, I see all these guys and they're not around. One thing I'm worried I'm going to be the oldest living Pacer here pretty soon. I don't know if I want to do that.
Well, hey, listen, but you know what?
I got two ahead of me, Tom Thacker and Art Becker. So I call those guys once in a while. They hope you're healthy, guys.
make sure you're eating right, doing all that right. Tom Thacker, by the way, the only player in basketball history to have won an ABA, NBA, and NCAA title. One of my favorite trivia questions.
He also won a high school championship.
It's pretty impressive, right? Pretty impressive.
Tell me about it. Oh yeah.
Now, Bob, with that, do you see that? And I don't know how much, I know obviously you follow this group. I don't know how much you if you're watching every game, but I think the thing that's special about the 2025 Indiana Pacers, aside from being a win away from winning it all, it feels like they have that chemistry. And that's even more rare today, to your point. But can you see that? As somebody who felt it with teammates, can you see it in this group?
Yeah, I can. I don't know if it's as strong as ours was, but it will get that way. And I'll tell you what, winning really helps that bond. I'll tell you, it's amazing what winning will do for you. And I can see the bond. I can watch the guys, the way they react to each other. And, some of these teams, they'll be on the bench over there. Guys will be playing or losing. They're laughing, having a good time. But this team, they're not. I've noticed they're not like that. And one guy does something good, and they're all behind him. And it doesn't matter if it's the lowest guy on the bench. And that's the way we were. We didn't care who scored, and even the guy that didn't even play on the bench was as much as the team as all of us were. And that's why I think we won the championships. And truthfully, we should have won 5, but we only won 3. But we should have won 5 in a row. But we just had a great team, and we had a great coach. And it was one of those rare things that we all just blended. And this team's got some of that. I can see that in these guys, and I watch the way they interact with each other. And I'll tell you what, it sure showed out last night. I mean, they kicked some rear end last night.
Yeah, it was pretty unbelievable last night. And that's one of those games, Neto. Bob Netolicky on the Ryan Gush Brewery guest line is our guest. One of those games where, once the tsunami came and all of a sudden shots are just falling from everywhere and the threes were going, right. And it was an awesome atmosphere, right?
Oh, yeah, and you got to watch out because like in a couple of those games they started out like that and then they kind of stopped. And I think they've kind of figured it out. And they got one thing about Carlisle. I like him as a coach. He's relaxed. He's not over there pulling his hair out and screaming and yelling too much. And I think he's got them all together. And they're playing well. And it's kind of sad if they win it all, they'll win it on the road again, because we did it. Actually, it was the first championship we won. It was my fault we didn't win at home, and I didn't tell Slick about it till 20 years later. But we had the 6th game at home or 5th game at home. We were up 3-2 or 3-1 or 3-1 or something like that, and the game was at home, national TV. And like a dum-dum, my lawyer and I went out the day before water skiing, and my arms were so sore I missed probably 6 easy shots. My arms were so sore, and we lost by like 2 points. And I didn't tell Slick for 20 years because I was afraid he'd kill me.
Now, here's the most impressive thing about that. The most impressive thing is that you found a place to water ski in Indiana, right? I mean, would have been Geist? Is that where you were, Lakeman? Like, where'd you go water skiing?
Yeah, I had my attorney that back then was my guy Mike Quinn, and he had a boat up there on the lake, and I loved to water ski when I was a kid. And he called me that afternoon. It was hot, and I said, "Let's go skiing." I said, "Okay." And like a dummy, I didn't realize, the first time you go out and you slalom ski, you come back and you can hardly even pick up your coffee cup. Your arms are so sore, and it was kind of a goofy deal, but that's part of history, I guess.
Well, when you go on the road, so after that, of course, you're not telling anybody. Of course, and for that matter, I mean, it's bad enough if you've got to shake Mel Daniels' hand, right? That'll break your hand. Now you got a broken hand and a broken arm. So, but when you go on the road, as this team's going to have to do, Bob, I'm curious.
Well, first of all, when we went to L.A., there was no doubt we knew we were going to win the game. That's the way we thought. Our mentality was that we're going to win the damn game, and we did. And I think if these guys, they gotta forget. They have to forget that they're on the road. They gotta play the Pacer game. They gotta play like they're at home. Just forget the road. Just forget everything, and just concentrate on what you do the best. And sometimes you can get in a little funk or something doesn't go right, and that's where a guy like I think Carlisle does a good job. He'll call a timeout, he'll settle them down, and it's all going to come out in the wash on Sunday. And I sure hope it. I hope it does. I may end up drinking more than one beer watching the game.
Well, let me ask you, is it more important for Indiana to somehow carry that momentum from Game 6, or is it more important to say, you know what, we can't rely on that? I mean, we can't rest our laurels on that because Oklahoma City, you know, we got to wonder their psyche as well, but you're going into a hostile environment. I mean, how do you balance that as a player?
Well, I think they can't go in and just say, hey, we beat the heck out of them. They're going to play that way. They got to figure they're going to play a lot better than that. Okay, let's face it, they're going to play better, and we got to play better. And we just got to, in my opinion, they just got to go in there with a killer attitude, like basically a take no prisoners attitude. And you can't, for 1 second, let yourself get down. If you miss a couple shots, so what? You got to keep going and keep going. And that was the one thing about Slick, that one of us got down or something. The two other guys would pick the guy up. And we didn't care if Roger scored 40 or if I scored 40. Who cares as long as they won? And, of course, we'd have Mel in there grabbing every rebound, knocking everybody around, including his own players, rebounds.
Right.
But it was a different mentality. But I can see this team, kind of reflected in the way we were as a team, and I'm very happy for them. I wish the heck I was back there. I'd love to go to the game and see that, but I'll be watching on TV. And like I said, I hope I can drink a couple afterward to toast the victory.
Now, Oklahoma City's not far from Austin, right? I mean, I'm guessing, I have no idea, but it can't be too far from you. You can make a phone call, right?
It's
Bob Netolicky, for crying out loud.
It's not too far away. I don't. It's a pretty good lick, I think. I'm not sure, but
it's probably. I'm going to guess. How far are you from Dallas? Because I think it's about 4 from Dallas. What are you, like 3?
Well, yeah, we're about 200 and some from Dallas.
Yeah. Okay. So
we're south of Dallas. We're almost just north of San Antonio. So.
Here's the big question everybody wanted me to ask. What happened to the neon sign from Netto's? Netto's in the Meadows, which was your bar. The big neon sign. Where's the neon sign? Do we know?
Oh, the one on the front? There was one on the front, but it was a big plastic. It had letters, Nettos, and then the big red, white, blue ball. And then there was one behind the bar, and I have no idea where that thing went. And then we had some big red, white, and blue balls up. And gosh, I honestly don't know where they were. I wish back then you don't consider memorabilia or anything, but I wish the heck I would have had it because it was a different time, and it was a different time in the world back then. And I don't think a bar like that would be kind of fun to have something like that today. But it'd be a little dangerous. I'll put it this way: we didn't make much money, but we sure had a lot of fun.
Well, I love it. Listen, here's my thought. Bob Netolicky, who joins us on the Rhinegeist Brewery guest line. I love this thought more than life itself. Okay, Bob, I know what this. If they were to win, and even this run. I know what it means to people in this town, right? I know what it means for so many people from different generations, different eras, different installments of Pacer teams that they have followed. But I love nothing more than the thought, if the Pacers are able to cut down those nets, win, do the trophy presentation in Game 7, that at the Nettos in the sky, that Slick's enjoying a beer, Mel's enjoying a beer, McGinnis is enjoying a beer, and Robin Miller's drinking a Pepsi while fetching beers for the rest of them.
I was going to say, Robin, I miss Robin so much, and Robin would be right there. And, of course, you got to remember, now, Roger Brown, he'd be drinking. He didn't know how to drink, so he would always order this drink called the Golden Cadillac. whatever it was, that's what Roger drank. And you want to hear a funny story about George in my bar real quick?
Let's go.
Well, George just signed with us, and he was only like 19 or 20 when he just when he signed with the Pacers. He come walking in the bar like and I let him in, and he goes up to the bar and orders a drink. I said, "What do you want, George?" And I thought you have a beer or something. He said, and he probably heard it on a movie or something. He said, I'll have some crazy drink, a wall banger or something like that, a zombie. He said, I wanted a zombie, and I said, "Are you sure you want a zombie?" "Oh yeah, I'll have a zombie." So my bartender, when she made a zombie, you could put it in a rocket and it'd take off.
Okay.
So make a long story short, George finished his drink, and about 20 minutes later, we looked at him, we carried him out to the car, and got him home. Okay, that was George's first experience with my bar.
Could not, and George McGinnis would not have been. It didn't take one guy to pick him up. It took like 7, right?
Oh God, he was huge. I mean, people don't realize how big he really was and how strong he was for his. I mean, I think they say he would have been a great tight end. I mean, my gosh, he was in fabulous.
But kind of a gentle giant, right?
Oh, he sure was. The sad part is, we were all such good friends. I talked to George literally 2 days before he passed, and we were. I sent him. He wanted one of these Netos. Bob and Tom sells these Netto hats and stuff, and T-shirts from my bar. And I sent George a pair, and and he sent me a picture with him wearing them. And I called him back, and then he passed about 2 or 3 days later. But it was a sad deal. I remember when they called me, and he was in the hospital for a while. And such a big, strong guy. But I'll tell you what, and Mel Daniels too. I mean, it's just a rough deal, but I know those guys are up there having fun. Actually, Slick's probably working to death, thinking of runs at baseline in the morning.
That's right. Old habits die hard, right? Well, I'll tell you what, Neto, I appreciate the time today. To be able to get a hold of you and have you come on is, an honor for me and for the people of Indianapolis to hear you. It means everything. And
it's great talking to you. Last time we interviewed, remember Robin and I were on your show, I think.
That's right.
A while back.
That's right.
And that was a wild deal.
And man, do I miss Robin. We all do, right? I mean,
I used to talk to Robin like every other 3 or 4. Robin, we wrote that book together when we had a ball doing that, and it was just there's a lot of guys. You look back and you think, man, where's all the time gone?
I know.
It's amazing.
Well, it's what I said, Bob. I hope people are able to soak in and enjoy this ride because before you know it, a week becomes a year. You know what I mean?
And it'll be so great for the franchise. It'll be great for the city, and it'll be. You know what else? It'll be good. It'll be good for the small market teams. Everybody thinks you got to be in L.A. or New York to win this thing, and that's a bunch of bull. So.
Well, it's been a finals for the league. I mean, it's been a victory for basketball to see Indiana and Oklahoma City, which truthfully is kind of like looking in the mirror in the way those teams are built and the markets themselves. Neto, we certainly appreciate it. Enjoy it. All right. And
okay, man. I'm gonna text you that picture of George with my hat on after I get done. Can I use that other one? The other number you sent me?
Oh, of course. Yeah. Text me right now.
Okay,
yep.
Baby.
You got the number.
Okay. Well, say hi to hey. I like that picture of you and your girlfriend. It was on the internet yesterday. You guys look pretty good together.
Well, I appreciate that. She's going to Oklahoma City. She's leaving me behind to go to Game 7. I can't blame her.
I can't even.
All right, thanks, Neto. Appreciate it.
Okay, man. Hey, great talking to you.
All
Bye-bye.
Right. As always, Bob Netolicky joining us, Ryan Geist Brewery guest line. Listen, it's been an unbelievable run. And, I'm going to be honest with you folks. Part of why I said it's important to soak it in is because you just don't know, right? You just don't know. You don't know when they're going to be here again. I told that 10-year-old kid yesterday before the game, I said, look, you might be my age before this happens again. You just never know. And there are so many things you don't want to miss out on. And on Fridays, on this particular program, we do talk a little serious stuff every once in a while. It's been heartbreaker for the Pacers over the course of the years. It's been absolutely like last night, your heart swells with what the Pacers did. And I never thought two things would happen for me in my early 50s. I never thought I'd see the Pacers within a game of winning the finals, and I never thought I'd be labeled as somebody who has heart disease, but I do. And I want to make sure that all of you are up to speed on that particular subject. So once a month, we talk to a doctor from Franciscan Health and have an important conversation. It is an important one. We'll do that. We'll come back, and then we'll continue celebrating the Pacers before we hand it off to John, who's at Victory Field today on this Friday edition of Aquarian Company. It is a Friday rolling along, bottom of the hour. You know what that means. It means it is a Franciscan Health Feel Good, Good for the Heart Friday. And I have so enjoyed the people that have come up to me to tell me that they got the $49 heart scan from Franciscan, which is so important. Sometimes people tell me, Jake, it was such a peace of mind because now I know where I stand. And then, of course, you get the heart health risk assessment with that. Others have come up to me to say, look, this was, Jake, potentially life-saving for me because I didn't know that there was something going on. I got the heart scan for just $49, which I'll get you folks all the information on how you can do that coming up in just a minute. But it is so important. And in talking about cardiovascular health and heart health, oftentimes it's important to just talk about some of the symptoms and just some of the simple things you can do. And so in that capacity, it is my pleasure to welcome to the program from the Franciscan Physician Network and a general cardiologist, Dr. Alicia Topple, joining me on the program. Doctor, how are you? Thanks for joining us.
I'm doing well, Jake. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to talk about something that I'm so passionate about.
Well, I appreciate your passion with it because I want to talk about heart disease. And this is something that I think a lot of people, doctor, think, you know, they think to themselves, oh, heart disease, that's something that like older people that smoked forever have, and I'm young and healthy and I don't need to worry about that. But there are still a lot of areas perhaps that people don't realize that may wade them into danger areas. So if you could, let's begin by simply talking about heart disease itself and kind of what defines that and what age ranges people might start entering into the areas of risk.
Sure. So that's where preventive cardiology is so exciting. You know, with preventive cardiology, this is trying to prevent the things from happening, those things like strokes, heart attacks, heart failure, AFib. And so it really starts whenever we're young. So even as teenagers, as young children, making sure that we're doing all those healthful things like diet, exercise, building those into our regular lifestyle is so important. Waiting until an event happens, I think is really just something that we can try to start avoiding by going back and thinking, how can I make these life changes something that I do on an everyday basis?
When I think heart disease, doctor, and for me personally, you know, it was even after having a heart attack, which I did, it was sobering and humbling to hear that I fell in the category of heart disease. Heart disease itself is defined as exactly and precisely what? Because when I hear disease, that sounds to me like something that you acquire because you were on a plane and somebody had it and you got it through, you know what I mean? So what defines as heart disease?
So heart disease is having any kind of problem with the cardiovascular system. Oftentimes we're talking about things like blockages in the coronary arteries, those things that lead to those heart attacks. Heart disease can also be high blood pressure, the high cholesterol. So anything that's adversely, affecting the heart. But a lot of times we are talking mostly about that coronary artery disease.
Okay, and let's get to some of the areas, I guess, of risk for folks. When you talk about heart disease, give me a couple of things that perhaps people may not be aware are increasing their chances of obtaining heart disease in their lifetime.
Absolutely. So some of those things, high blood pressure is one of the most important. High cholesterol is also a risk factor. Diabetes, even pre-diabetes, and having increased central obesity or weight around the waistline. People who have a family history of heart disease, parents or siblings who have had heart attack, stroke, that puts you at an increased risk. And also smoking. Some other things I think that are really important to look at are some of the other risk factors. For women, if they've ever had gestational diabetes, if they've had high blood pressure in pregnancy, something like preeclampsia or eclampsia, that puts them at increased risk for future heart disease. Other things, sleep apnea, drinking too much alcohol, which for women would be more than 1 drink per day, and for men 2 drinks per day. Having a sedentary lifestyle, chronic kidney disease, or even having any kind of autoimmune or rheumatologic disease that increases the body's inflammation are also all risk factors for heart disease. So the list can keep going on and on. Those are a lot of the really heavy hitters.
Now, I want to get to one of those you just mentioned, Doctor. Dr. Alicia Topple, by the way, from Franciscan Health is my guest. We're talking about heart disease and the preventative nature of it and being proactive about it. Sleep apnea is an interesting one because I think most people know, doctor, okay, look, I need to quit smoking, or I should never start smoking, or I need to lose weight, or, those sorts of things. Sleep apnea is one that perhaps some people may struggle with and not even be aware. And also, I'm curious what the correlation there is and how that does, in fact, affect the heart.
Sure. So sleep apnea, you're exactly right. It is linked to a higher chance of having things like high blood pressure, stroke, coronary artery disease, and atrial fibrillation. So especially if you're snoring at night, it's really important to go and be screened by your doctor because treating sleep apnea can help make it easier to treat other heart-related conditions. But what really is happening when people are having those apneic events, when they stop breathing at night, it increases things like those stress hormones in the body. That's going to cause an increase in heart rate, increase in blood pressure, especially over time. And that is what causes the damage to the blood vessels, which allows for that cholesterol to then deposit into those blood vessels. And so that's how you end up with those blockages that can eventually lead to eventual heart attacks or strokes.
When we think about choices that one can make, doctor, to be preventative, right, in terms of, not gaining a lot of weight, not drinking alcohol, not smoking, those sorts of things. What about things that people can do that are a friend of your heart? In other words, exercise would be one, obviously. Are there particular food items that can help lower blood pressure that people may not be aware of, or things they can do that your heart is going to celebrate each time that you choose that as, say, a menu option?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is something I talk to patients about all the time. So you're right, exercise and getting regular exercise of at least about 150 minutes per week divided. So usually 20 to 30 minutes of moderate activity such as walking, dancing, things like that, things you don't really need a gym membership for. That's going to be something your body, just like you said, celebrates. Other things that are really helpful, eating things that are fresh, like whole foods, fruits, vegetables, whole grains. We always talk about that Mediterranean diet, which is full of really healthy things like legumes, vegetables, yogurts, things that are really fresh and usually very widely available, things that are seasonal. Your body's going to respond very well to that. And also, whenever you're cooking your own food, instead of using processed foods, you control, by not putting the sodium into your food. So that's going to help overall with blood pressure. And then the fiber is going to help decrease things like LDL and triglycerides, which we're always talking about whenever you see us, and we're talking about prevention. Making things crunchy and at least half of your plate being things that are fresh foods like vegetables, then that can make huge differences along the way.
And doctor, one thing I do know is that should someone experience the symptoms of a heart attack, and I tell people a lot, in my case, it felt like my arm had the tightest tourniquet of all time placed on it immediately. It was not gradual, it was immediate. Followed by a warmth in my sternum, and then I started sweating profusely. So it was pretty obvious something was going on. There are other symptoms like the feeling of, like an elephant on your chest. I didn't per se feel that. But when somebody is experiencing those symptoms, and I wanted you to back me up on this, I tell people now, the most important thing to do is to call 911 immediately and not necessarily try to be a hero, but to allow for an ambulance, say, to get to you so that they can begin the process of getting a cath lab ready, radioing ahead, and getting you the blood thinners and that sort of thing to help out. But I would assume that I'm giving people the right advice there, correct?
Absolutely. So if ever you're having those symptoms of a heart attack, and they can vary, it can be that heaviness elephant. Sometimes it's just like a band-like sensation around your chest, and you can have symptoms like or you can have symptoms like pressure or pain radiating up to your neck, your jaw, your back, your shoulder. So any kind of strange sensation that you're having in your chest, definitely pay attention to. whatever you're doing, if you're driving, pull over to the side of the road, call 911 for exactly those same reasons that you mentioned. It allows someone to get to you, to assess the situation, to give you things like aspirin, and then get the team ready for whichever hospital they're taking you to, so that they can be ready to accept you and evaluate you.
And the best place for preventative care, of course, Franciscan Health, the heart scan, it begins with that, just $49. And as well, making sure that you are on top of all of the symptoms, being aware of it. And as I always say to people, if you have any questions, they can always reach out to me as well, and I will help out. Doctor, I appreciate the time today. It's an important conversation, and I appreciate you sharing it with us and doing what you can to help all of us in terms of cardiovascular health and being preventative about it. Appreciate the time today.
Thank you so much. Thank you. This was great.
Much appreciated. John is out at Victory Field. Franciscan Health, by the way, again, heart scan's just $49 for a heart scan. There's no reason not to get a heart scan because of the fact that you can find out all of the information. You get a heart health risk assessment as well, a $49 heart scan from Franciscan Health. You can always just Google Franciscan Health /screening bundles for more information. John is out at Victory Field, IHSAA State Finals, and I know we'll be talking plenty about what happened last night at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. It was a very, very special night, no question about it. And there was one moment, as I explained earlier, to me, where this euphoria just overcame me. It happened to me in game number 3, just in general. And then last night, it was when Shepard hit that shot. When Shepard hit that shot, people are jumping up and down. I'm high-fiving people I never met. There was one guy I felt bad for. I'll tell you who next. A lot of fun today, and I certainly appreciate everybody partaking. The callers earlier, Mark Montieth, Darnell Hillman, Austin Crocher, Rick Smits, Bob Netolicky. Ton of fun today, and I never thought I'd say it. I really didn't. I did not think that I would see the day where the Pacers would have one game to win a title. I just, that's all you can ask for. I mean, I was disappointed in game 4, but they, here they are. They still are one win away, and we shall see what happens. Do I think it's going to be a big mountain to climb? Yes, I do. Do I think it's going to be a huge challenge? Yes, I do. Does it also feel like if there's any team that just the way that they've been able to do it this year that it's the most? Yes, I do. I just, anything can happen in a Game 7. That's just the bottom line. In a Game 7, literally anything can happen. And, you hope now that it does. Last night in Game 6, the moment for me that just all the feels hit me was at the end of that third quarter when they were up 30. Because I'm not going to lie, when it was like a 21-point game, Gilgeous-Alexander had hit a couple shots, and I was saying to everyone around, like, look, they got to be careful here. They got to be careful. And then when they went up 30, and then you just knew, you're like, okay, it is in fact their night. And, I mean, high-fiving everybody. There was a poor guy sitting in front of me. He was by himself. He was sitting in the Rick Fox seat, but he was by himself. And I said, and he was wearing a Thunder T-shirt, and he grew up in Oklahoma City and now lives in Chicago. So he drove down from Chicago for the game. And I'm like, I get it. If I was, that age and I lived in Dallas and the Pacers were playing in Oklahoma City with a chance to close it, I would have driven to Oklahoma City or Houston or whatever from Dallas to go see it. So I get it. But this poor guy, I got to thinking about it. At the end of the game, I said to him, I go, you driving back tonight? He goes, yeah, I live in Chicago. It's like 3 hours. But it was bad enough to drive to St. Louis for the IndyCar race after the Pacers' disappointment in Game 4. I can't imagine doing that after paying like $10,000 for a ticket. He had to have spent $10 or $15,000 for that ticket. And I'm like, man, I guess if you're spending that much, you probably aren't worried about it, but still, nonetheless.
I'm thinking you were feeling bad for me because I'm stuck in the studio right here, and I didn't get to experience all that. So I've been along for the ride the entire year.
Yeah, but you get a ring if they win it.
I don't know if I do or not, Jake. It hasn't.
I guarantee it.
It hasn't been discussed with me.
Ring they can afford. Now, if they did crowns, they might not get you one because of the price of gold and that 8 3/4 melon.
Thank you.
You know what I mean? They'd have to take out another loan. But no,
I just thought it was interesting, Jake, from the game perspective here, like the tactician that is Rick Carlisle and the adjustments that he's made, electing to go against the norm of what they've done the entire postseason and not picking up 94 feet, allowing their defense, the players that is, to get into a set defense, to pack the paint, prevent Gilgeous-Alexander and Jalen Williams from being able to get to the basket.
And he mentioned that. Gilgeous-Alexander mentioned it, right?
Yeah, and just forcing all of them to make shots in which they haven't done so on the road, and I'll be fascinated to see how the Thunder counteract that in game number 7.
I'm nervous for it. I am. But either way, we're going to talk about it on Monday, and hopefully we'll be talking and celebrating. But either way, this franchise is going nowhere anytime soon. Nor is John. He's up next. He's at Victory Field, IHSA State Baseball Finals. Plenty to unpack from last night, as the Pacers are now 4 quarters, 1 win, 1 game away from an NBA title. I thank everybody for listening and celebrating today. John's up next, and we will be back with you at noon. Have a wonderful weekend, and go Pacers.